You think you know who you are. That belief feels so solid, so obvious, that you've probably never questioned it in your entire life. But what if I told you that the person you think you are right now is mostly fiction? Not a lie exactly. Something stranger. A story your mind built to keep you safe. And that story might be quietly running your entire life without your permission. Here's the strange part. Most people never discover this. They go decades convinced that their self-image is simply who they are, a fixed truth, when really it's closer to a costume they put on so early they forgot it was ever removable. Think about it. Have you noticed how certain moments make you flinch before you even understand why? Someone questions your intelligence and something tightens in your chest. Someone challenges the way you parent, or the way you work, or the way you love. And suddenly you're defending yourself like your life depended on it. It didn't. Not really. But it felt that way. And that feeling is the first clue that something deeper is happening beneath the surface of your everyday reactions. Psychologists have a name for this. They call it the self-concept, the mental model you carry of who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve, and how the world is supposed to treat you. It sounds harmless when you say it like that. Almost academic. But here's what nobody talks about. Your self-concept isn't just a description of you. It's a prediction engine. Your brain uses it to anticipate what should happen next, and when reality doesn't match that prediction, your nervous system treats it like a threat. Imagine you've always seen yourself as the responsible one in your family, the one who holds things together. That image feels good. It feels like an identity worth having. But now imagine a day comes when you make a mistake, a real one, the kind that hurts someone you love. Your brain doesn't just process the event. It panics because the event contradicts the story. And in that panic, most people don't examine the mistake. They defend the image instead. That's only part of the story, though. It gets even stranger. Neuroscience gives us a hint about why this happens so automatically. The brain's amygdala, that small almond-shaped structure buried deep in your temporal lobe, doesn't just respond to physical danger. Research suggests it also activates when your sense of self feels threatened. To your nervous system, an insult to your identity can register almost like a physical attack. That's why criticism sometimes feels like it hits your body before your mind even finishes processing the words. Your heart rate spikes, your throat tightens. You're not overreacting. You're wired this way. Now here's the strange part. Because the amygdala fires so fast, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reasoning, reflection, and nuance, often arrives late to the scene. By the time you're capable of thinking clearly about a criticism, your body has already decided how to feel about it. This is why so many arguments escalate before either person understands what they're actually upset about. You're not defending facts. You're defending your self-image, and self-image doesn't like to be edited in real time. But why would evolution build us this way? Wouldn't it make more sense to have a flexible, easily updated sense of self, one that adapts instantly to new information? Here's where it becomes fascinating. Evolutionary psychologists suggest that having a stable, consistent self-image once offered a survival advantage. In early human groups, social standing determined access to food, protection, and mates. If your identity shifted unpredictably, other people couldn't trust you, and trust was survival currency. So the brain evolved to protect a consistent narrative of who you are, even at the cost of accuracy. In other words, your mind sometimes prefers a comfortable lie over an uncomfortable truth, because for most of human history, comfort meant safety. That single insight changes everything about how you see your own defensiveness. It's not weakness. It's an ancient survival mechanism, quietly running in the background of your modern life, reacting to a performance review the same way it once reacted to being excluded from the tribe. But here's what most people completely miss. Your self-image isn't only shaped by your own experiences. It's shaped by reflection, meaning the way other people responded to you long before you had the ability to question any of it. Think back to childhood. Have you noticed how certain phrases from your parents or teachers still echo somewhere inside you, even decades later? You're so dramatic. You're the smart one. You're not like your sibling. Children don't have the cognitive tools to challenge these statements. They absorb them as fact, and those early reflections quietly become the architecture of adult identity. Psychologists call this the looking-glass self, the idea that we come to know ourselves not through direct self-observation, but through imagining how others see us. What if the person you believe yourself to be was never something you chose? What if it was assembled for you, one comment at a time, one glance at a time, one moment of approval or disappointment at a time, until it hardened into something you now defend as if it were sacred truth? That's a heavy thought. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because the story doesn't end with childhood. It continues every single day, reinforced by something far more subtle: habit. Here's what's interesting. Your brain doesn't just store beliefs about yourself. It seeks evidence to confirm them. This is called confirmation bias, and it might be one of the most powerful psychological forces shaping your daily reality. If you believe you're unlovable, you'll notice every small sign of rejection and dismiss every sign of affection as coincidence or pity. If you believe you're incapable of finishing things, you'll remember every unfinished project vividly, while forgetting the times you actually followed through. Your mind isn't lying to you on purpose. It's simply doing what it was built to do, protecting the internal story at all costs, even when that story is quietly making you miserable. Now imagine what happens biochemically when your self-image gets confirmed. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward and reinforcement, gets released whenever your predictions about the world turn out to be correct, even if those predictions are negative. That means your brain can feel a strange, uncomfortable satisfaction from proving your own insecurities right. Being proven right feels good, even when what you're right about is your own pain. This single mechanism explains so much self-sabotage that otherwise makes no sense. People aren't chasing failure. They're chasing the comfort of familiarity, and familiarity to the brain always feels safer than uncertainty, even when uncertainty would lead somewhere better. But wait, if this is true, if your self-image is a story built by childhood reflection, reinforced by confirmation bias, and rewarded by dopamine, then who exactly is the real you underneath all of that? This is where the twist becomes personal. Some psychologists argue there is no single fixed self waiting to be discovered underneath the layers. Instead, identity may be more like a living narrative, something you are constantly writing, editing, and re-editing based on new experiences. This idea, sometimes called narrative identity, suggests that your sense of self is less like a photograph and more like a story still being told. And stories, unlike photographs, can be rewritten. Have you noticed how a single powerful experience can shift your entire sense of self almost overnight? A near miss on the road that suddenly makes you value life differently. A conversation with a stranger that changes how you see your own potential. A moment of unexpected kindness that softens a belief you've held about people for years. These moments work precisely because they interrupt the predictable pattern your brain was running. They force a rewrite. This is also why travel, new relationships, therapy, and even certain books can feel so transformative. They aren't adding new facts to your life. They're offering your brain new evidence that contradicts an old story. And once contradicted enough times, the story has no choice but to update. Here's the deeper emotional meaning hiding underneath all of this. If your self-image was built through reflection and reinforced through habit, then you were never as fixed as you believed. Your identity was never carved in stone. It was written in something closer to sand, shaped by tide after tide of experience, and sand can always be reshaped by a new wave. That means the parts of yourself you've quietly resented, the anxious overthinker, The person who always seeks approval, the one who can't seem to trust easily, none of those traits are permanent verdicts about your worth. They are patterns your nervous system learned in order to survive a particular chapter of your life. And patterns, unlike character flaws, can be unlearned. What if the real danger was never your flaws themselves, but your belief that those flaws defined an unchangeable self? What if the moment you stop treating your self-image as truth and start treating it as a story still in progress, everything begins to feel a little more possible? This is the final perspective shift. You are not a fixed identity defending itself against the world. You are a living narrative, constantly rewriting itself in response to what you experience, what you learn, and what you choose to believe about yourself moving forward. The version of you sitting here right now is not the final draft. It never was. And once you understand that, criticism stops feeling like a verdict and starts feeling like feedback. Mistakes stop feeling like identity threats and start feeling like plot points. Change stops feeling like betrayal of who you are and starts feeling like growth of who you're becoming. Maybe the most dangerous illusion was never other people's opinions of you. Maybe it was your own certainty about who you are, a certainty so convincing that you stopped questioning whether it was even true. But if your identity really is a story still being written, then there's another question hiding just behind this one. Why do some people rewrite their story with ease, while others feel trapped rereading the same painful chapter for years? That difference might come down to something even more hidden than self-image, something psychologists call your attachment style, quietly shaping who you trust, who you fear, and who you keep choosing without ever realizing why.